Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 20 of Shanalytics. It's nice to be this many episodes into this series now. I appreciate everyone who's been watching so far. I appreciate all the support from everybody. But today I'm really excited because I got a really special guest here. I got my guy, Jose Sanchez. Jose is the deputy editor of All 49ers Sports Illustrated. I'm a writer there as well, so I encourage everybody to go and check out all the All 49ers content we'll be putting out. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of stuff coming out over the next few days, over the next few weeks. Jose, how are you doing today? What's your day been like, man? Things have been pretty crazy. It's the first day of training camp officially.
I know. Wasn't that presser a little fun to watch? It's like so much coach talk, and now we're back again. Like, oh, here we come. The Jimmy defenders and then the trail. It's like, come on, guys. We already know how it is. It's not Jimmy's team anymore, man. So it's time to flip the page and look to the future, which is Trey Lance. Start Lance week 1.
Oh yeah, well we're on the start Lance week 1 train here, but it's funny that press conference kind of felt like the first day at school, right? It was kind of like that first introduction to the season, and it's funny like you were saying with the coach speak and everything that we've been seeing so far. And let's just get right into the first thing that I wanted to talk about, and this is great timing and I didn't even realize this press conference was happening today, Jose, when I scheduled this, but things happen for a reason, right? So what were the main takeaways that you had from this press conference we saw earlier today from Shanahan and Lynch?
So, yeah, they said a lot. The thing is about first weeks, I'd say, well, first of all, thank God D Ford, Hurd, and Bosa, like they said, like, yeah, these guys are gonna be fine. Maybe first week we'll take it easy on them, which is like, okay, cool. That's number one, to be honest. But other than that, I felt like a lot of it, I didn't feel like I learned anything new. It felt like, first day of school, like you said, what do you expect in their first day of class in college? Syllabus. Or sometimes some professors go out of the way and be like, come make friends with the new students. Like, no, I don't know. He might make me do more work. Screw him, screw her, whatever it's going to be. So it didn't really feel like anything. It kind of felt like more regurgitation. But being us as media, I didn't get to go there today because I've been busy, and plus the Niners have been hating on me lately. But I think I probably would have asked something more of the line like, well, actually exactly what they asked, to be honest. You have to keep prying, see if maybe you see how tight is the welding to the pipeline of information of Kyle Shanahan. So that's why it's like, why do the media keep asking the same stupid, redundant questions? Well, because enough times where you keep banging on the wall, at some point, maybe there'll be a crack, maybe it'll be a little leak, a little nice little tidbit that we can use. Which, Kyle Shanahan is pretty good, although there is occasionally he will crack. I mean, it's sometimes he'll just say it. I mean, one thing I will say that I keyed in on is, and I saw people on Twitter going, it's Jimmy's team, just look at what Kyle said. But hey, what did Kyle say? He said, if you are at the top of your game, Jimmy, but how often is he at the top of his game? How many times has at least I've said consistency issue with this guy? That's why when I go back to 2019, he was average with above average moments or games. What was the above average moments in games? Week 17, Seattle, the Saints. You could even say the Arizona game. Those are at least the 3 in my head. And then maybe even the Rams game in the end, just because of how he did in that final drive. But still, the point is whoever's beating who, and I just saw Grant said like, hey, Cherry got some first team reps already today. And honestly, I did not expect that first day of OTAs. Maybe the second or third. You're stepping into the fold in the first day. That's saying a lot. So I think we're not going to learn too much from this. At this point, it's just about, let's just see how it's progressing forward. I feel like in the second or third week of camp, while we're getting close to preseason is when it's going to start. Some of the cards are going to start showing. So I'm excited to see where it's going to go from there.
Yeah, I agree with a ton of what you said. Specifically on the injury thing, they did talk about the players who are going to hopefully pass their physical. They said they haven't passed them yet, but they expect Nick Bosa, D Ford, Jalen Hurd to potentially pass their physical. So that was great news to me, because I think the one concern I had going into today was, what's the Nick Bosa situation going to be like? With D Ford and with Jalen Hurd, we kind of know what that is at this point. That's extra, if anything. We don't expect much from those players. But with Nick Bosa specifically, we haven't seen him in the prior camps, in the prior OTAs. So I'm really curious to see how involved he is. And then, with the injury thing in general, one thing I did pick up on that Shanahan was saying is that he was talking about someone asked him essentially, "Oh, what are you doing to practice better? What are you doing to make sure that your players aren't going to be getting injured?" And what he kept talking about was the fact that he thought they did a really great job of that in 2019, right? And then with the 2020 season, things get off the rails. You can't have your players there. All kinds of excuses, valid, legitimate excuses that he did bring up. But the thing that did bug me out of all of that is he essentially said, "Oh, we figured things out in 2019." I don't feel like they figured out the injury situation too much in 2019, because even though they did get to the Super Bowl, Joe Staley was hurt for most of the season, and now George Kittle was dealing with injuries constantly. Quan Alexander dealing with injuries constantly. I feel like this is an issue where the 49ers are just hoping that it's going to get better rather than actually changing, evolving, and making different decisions. That's kind of what bugged me from today's press conference, Jose.
No, that was a good. Yeah, that's actually that's probably the best thing you could take away from that press conference, to be honest, easily, because I think even Kyle Shanahan said, like, well, I don't want to give away everything, but I just feel good where we're at. Like give away everything. I feel like, do you even have anything to begin with? Like, I mean, I really, it is true that I just believe that Kyle Shanahan just thinks these are all just freak injuries, and when they try to reflect on themselves, it's like they're pulling a Mike McGlinchey, where it's like, "Hey, are you sure it's not your fault?" And he's like, "No, we did fine. It's everyone else's fault." That's a little bit of Kyle Shanahan. Maybe that's where McGlinchey gets it from. I don't know. I'm I'm reaching here, but no, in that sense, yeah, it definitely is that, because that's something that, if anything, that you wish they would work upon, reflect upon at all over the last year, or even the last 2 years, other than quarterback play. Or even you can factor this in, because the quarterback has been getting injured, is the injuries. What are you going to do about that? Because your injuries for the last 2, 3, ever since Kyle Shanahan and Kyle John Lynch took over, it's been asinine. It's been bizarre. It's been ludicrous. Like, what's going on with you guys? Like, I used to say it in articles when I first started covering 49ers. It's like, I said the best way I can explain it is what the 49ers did is they set up ladders a whole across the field of Levi stadiums, and they just did sprints up and down. That's the only way to explain the bad luck, to be honest to me, because this is just ludicrous at this point. So they need to figure out something. I mean, again, I wrote an article saying, hey, questions need to be asked, because I don't know exactly. I know no more than a quarter of exactly how the regiment goes. So that's what I'm saying. Just questions need to be asked. Play out different scenarios. They're working out too hard. Like the video with Lenore, they're getting way too aggressive in OTAs. Maybe that was just a rep. Maybe that was the whole practice. Who knows? But point is, question needs to be asked. But yeah, you're right. He needs to maybe tinker with something. And I feel like it's a little bit different this year in training camp, because I look on the media schedule and the training camp. Every camp's practice is going 10-17, 10-17, 10-17. So it's more structured. It's more routine. Where last year was like, me and Grant were going there at 10. We're going there at 11, 12. It's like it was so up and down. So I don't know. Maybe they definitely thought something was changing this year. At least maybe they're thinking doing something in that sense would make a difference.
Yeah, and I think that's the hope, and that was kind of the worry I had is like you're talking about it. I don't think you said it this way, but I feel like it's sort of a nonchalant attitude from Kyle Shanahan, where he doesn't talk about injuries as if it's something he has any effect over. It's more just something that happens. But so that bothered me a lot. But with the quarterback situation, we do have to address this. The comment that Kyle specifically made, saying Jimmy Garoppolo is our number one quarterback, Trey Lance is going to be the backup. What did you think when you heard that, Jose? Because 49ers fans were certainly grabbing onto that comment.
Coach talk. Coach talk. I mean, you can't say, I wouldn't put Trey Lance immediately like that, but because what have we all been saying on our own show, our own articles and everything? Like, don't just give it to him. Don't just gift it to him. I mean, and that's probably what, like you even said last week, is that's probably what the Bears are doing. And I know it's a little bit different because it's incumbent, but still, like, they did sign Andy Dalton first. He's the veteran. And then you would typically you would hope, well, not you would hope, but you would think that someone who's been in the league for years, was a starter, was Pro Bowl caliber, would be better than a rookie, at least his first few months in practice, whatever. Especially, and that's why I cater it to Garoppolo. Like, hey, not only is he a veteran, but he can play like above average times. But he's been in this offense for years now. You would think that he has like a huge advantage, which is why I think that this is all on Trey Lance's point. As long as Lance is playing good, he has a firm grip on the playbook, at least enough to where he can kind of take the top off a little bit more. then that's when you start considering him for week 1, because overall, you're not going to know exactly how he looks until he gets out there. You already know how Garoppolo looks, how he looks when things go wrong, but you also know how it looks like when things go right, which is why I think Kyle's serious in the sense of, hey, if I see Jimmy's going off in training camp, then I think he is going to start in week 1. I don't want them to do that, but I'm not going to be naive and think like, no, there's no chance in hell that Garoppolo's not going to start week 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. Because if Garoppolo does play high and there is some little tinkering, some molding still left in Lance, then that's for sure going to be exactly what Shanahan's playing it out to be. And plus, you still got to give respect to the guy, which I think he does respect him. It's not like a Goff and McVay situation where McVay and Snead started getting tired of Goff's inept, incompetence, poor play, where it's just Garoppolo. I mean, Shanahan, he's probably bugged with his performance, but it's definitely always been the injuries. Like that's why we said weeks ago, it's like I think it's injuries majority, but I'd say probably like 70-30. It's 70 injuries, 30 performance. But yeah, it's definitely what he's saying. He's not blowing smoke.
No, and the main thing is, like you're talking about, it really is a lot of coach speak from Kyle Shanahan right now. I don't feel like he's really wavered at all throughout this offseason. It seemed pretty simple to me that whenever Trey Lance is ready, whenever he's playing his best, and whenever he gives his team the best chance to win, he's going to be the starting quarterback. I just think there's a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo fans who heard that comment today and were like, oh my God, this is the holy grail. This is me.
See, I told you.
Yeah, no question the starter. You keep talking about cutting Jimmy Garoppolo. No. Look at what the 49ers are doing, where I'm sitting back and I'm looking at it this way. Why would the 49ers have any reason to dump on Jimmy right now? Like what you were saying with like Jared Goff comparatively, like it's in the 49ers' best interest, even if they know they're going to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, to pump up his stock right now. I mean, Grant was talking about this on Twitter, the pump and dump. I felt like that's what today was, a lot of pumping up Jimmy Garoppolo. So
always
you can communicate to the league through, or to the rest of the teams in the league through PR, essentially, that, hey, this guy is still our guy and he's so valuable to us. We value him so much, all this other stuff, where I think, to me, like often, and I found this, I've really learned this over my first year in journalism, specifically covering FSU, but I think this is applicable across sports, Jose. I think you would agree with me on this, is that a lot of times when teams are communicating things to their fans, they're really not giving you a ton of information. Most of the time, it's PR, right? They're specifically catering things so that they want fans and the rest of the league to hear specific things. They're never going to actually give us any information. So if they were going to start Trey Lance and they had this grand plan, like I've been talking about, where they're going to cut Jimmy Garoppolo before week 1, why would they give any inkling that they would be leaning towards that right now? It just doesn't make sense.
I've always said that I used, honestly, before I really started making this a job like 3 years ago when I got hired by SI, I used to hate watching pressers, to be honest, because I'm like, what are you going to learn from there? You're just going to take a quote, probably spin it, just talk about it. And in that sense, to me, I kind of consider that like aggregate content too, in a way. But I guess, you're there, you're reporting live. Like, it's great. Like, what are we going to learn from there? They posted on YouTube stream. Everyone can see it now. What are we doing here? But I always said, and I think I wrote about it like a month ago, when the 49ers lost that mini camp or whatever, but suspension or whatever the miscommunication was, all that such and such, because that little video with Lenore getting nice coverage and aggressiveness. When we thought Kyle Shanahan lied to us, I pretty much said, like, hey, the point is, whether he lied or not, he's not always being as transparent as you think. I feel like he's transparent to a degree, and how he does it, and the good coaches do it. They play chess through the media. They play chess through the pressers, which is why when Shanahan went on with Schrager and McVay, you could take that as face value, because he doesn't see those guys as media. He sees those as like two dudes chopping it up. Where he comes to see, us over there, he's just like, it's just orchestrated. Press conferences, you never look better at a press conferences. You just go through the motions. It's like you have a standard, you meet it. You can only hurt yourself at a press conference. You can't ever improve yourself no matter what. Well,
just look at what happened this offseason. The whole press conference right before the draft, where Kyle took over the press conference. He comes in and says,
he totally
I don't know who's going to be alive. Like, that only hurt the 49ers. It didn't help them.
Exactly. And it was just like, that's where he's like, oh man, like I was over here trying to like, when he admitted that, he's like, I was kind of doing too much there a little bit. Cause some coaches do have fun. I mean, Popovich does it. All the managers, NBA coaches, they all do it. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this for years. And Kyle, especially since he's a Suns coach, he knows how it goes, especially now that it's gotten like probably a little bit more exposed with social media and the new age with tech and everything. But yeah, I think in that sense with Kyle, he's not always going to show his hands. He's like exactly what Grant says, the pump and dump. Exactly. He knows what he's doing. He's going to keep curtailing it the way he wants it. He wants to be, he likes to be the puppet master, dude. He wants to have all his hands on the strings and like orchestrate everything, make everything his own little scene. Which is fine because he's done a fairly good job of it not for the most part, but a fairly good job of it. But you could definitely just see like the writing's on the wall. The way, I mean, don't never take what a coach says face value or a player says face value. I think if you do that, I'm just gonna laugh at you. Like, come on, you're gonna take what they say at face value, really? Like, you could throw it out there, but don't just like run with it and think it's 100%. Like it's weighted legitimately.
Yeah. But too often I feel like, and this definitely happens in the age of Twitter, people hold on to specific things from specific press conferences or whatever, right? And they'll say,
it's just to make them feel good. It's just to make them feel good and to further a point where it's like, at that point, it's like, that's where I just don't engage with too many people on Twitter or just anyone fans, regardless. They're going to say, oh, Shanahan said this. And I'm like, all right, if that's all you're going to keep doing is ripping the quotes. And it's like, I mean, some things I feel like, if there's context, I know you can just always cop out and say, well, what's the context? What's the context? But I think in this case of Shanahan, if there's context to what he's talking about exactly and how the question was asked, what the situation is, and how long he's been answering it, then you can tell like, okay, that there's some truth to that. Maybe not a whole truth, but some truth to it. Because Shanahan does go on and ramble. Like I remember in 2019, like I felt like he was really a transparent character. And that was my first year of covering the 49ers. Like this guy's revealing a lot. And a lot of what he was saying was true. But there was some lies where I was like, something doesn't add up here. And he was just, sidestepping a little bit or trying to like throw some curveballs to trick everyone. And then last year it was just a lot more like kind of like more like down and more to the chest, a little more because they're losing. When you're winning and if you're feeling good, you want to expose yourself more. And when you're losing, you're thinking more, you're more controlled, you're more gated. So I that's just how I view it, just in terms of like, don't just grab a quote and just run with it. Maybe look for another avenue to explore with that quote and like go further beyond, which is what I think us as writers have to do. Don't just say it and regurgitate it and just be like, oh yeah, see, this is what he's saying. Like, no, take it and maybe explore another avenue, which is what I try to do and everything like that. So that'd be something to that's I think what's our job to do now in terms of getting a presser, like just try to project in a way, not speculate and like try to just raise questions. That's what we do. That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, of course. And I think like what you're saying though, it's funny. People like they hang on to certain things and then they whatever pushes their narrative further, whatever helps them get their point along, they're gonna only bring up that information. But anything that contradicts that, oh, that stuff is taken out of or whatever. But I'm glad we covered the Shanahan Lynch press conference. There's some good stuff from there. I do want to get into our topics that I sent you over, and this kind of bleeds into the last topic a little, but specifically, Jose, when I was thinking about the 49ers last night at midnight, I kind of had this epiphany that I think there's going to be a rift between Kyle Shanahan in the front office in terms of the quarterback situation. I think, to me, it makes a ton of sense that Kyle would rather have Trey Lance be the starter than not be the starter. But I think there's a certain level of the organization and the players and everyone else involved that you can't just quite put Jimmy Garoppolo by the wayside, right? You can't just get rid of him this year. So it seems like Jimmy could be the starter in 2021. I mean, realistically, we just won't know right now. This is something we're going to find out over time until week one, maybe even going into the season. So setting aside, the whole situation, if Jimmy is the starter in 2021, what do you think is the ceiling for the 49ers with him?
Ceiling is, I think if you can say in terms of wins, you'd have to go, oh God, I'd say in terms of wins, like 11 wins max. That's their ceiling with him, because it's not like people are too locked on to Jimmy for the 5-game winning streak in 2018 or 2017. And they're too locked on to 2019 Jimmy, which both are wrong, because 2017 Jimmy is dead ever since he tore his ACL. 2019 Jimmy's not the same because that defense is as great as they were last year. They still were levels off 2019, and I think they're going to be levels off again without Robert Saleh, which I think people massively underrated. Immediately wasn't praised enough, wasn't loved enough. Not saying D'Amico's not going to be fine, but I feel like if I were to say the defense is going to be fine, I'm not doing Robert Saleh a service of you don't realize how talented this guy was. Just getting to speak with him in 2019, that guy is a genius. So I would say that the 11 wins is the most you're going to get, but I could definitely see a 9-win scenario, 9-8, 10-7, because there's just so much that it's not going to be the same. You look at it, they're going to see Jimmy Garoppolo just load the box and force them to throw. And if they can win, and if teams can win on that first down and stop everything within 2 yards, keep it a 2-yard gain, then that's exactly where they want them, because it's when it's like 3rd and 4 and less where Jimmy can still get you out. It's when it's past that Jimmy's all of a sudden like, oh God, dude. Yeah. And you already know probably Shanahan's probably going to dial something out, want to dial something up, going to the sidelines, a quick one. And Jimmy just can't hit those. Even watching him in practice these last couple of years, he's like, yeah, he really struggled. I mean, it is a tough throw, but I mean, yeah, he really can't hit those. I mean, even in 2019, I acknowledge that like his best strength is fast release, but that's because it's one reads. He has one read to make, a fast release until the middle of the field, because he knows how to like hit some of those zones, just try to hit those strides like a good portion of the time. But now it's like, how is he going to look now again, coming off more injuries? Is that going to hurt him again? Is he going to feel pressured off Lance, knowing that the moment he makes 1 or 2 mistakes, especially if they're consecutive or in the same drive, the clock's only going to get faster. So I think in this sense, that's why they want him. When you're saying there's a rift, like there could be a rift in terms of if they just straight up dethroned Jimmy.
Right.
But I think in that sense, you want Trey Lance to earn it, which is what, like again, we keep saying you want him to earn it. You want to set him up. And the 49ers are good, at least Kyle, or I don't know who was in on it. Let's say the 49ers are good at this because they did that with Verrett last training camp. And me and Grant were flabbergasted at that sense, because I didn't think Verrett looked that great in camp. He looked cool. He looked solid. Yeah. But he had Dante Pettis getting Stewie on him on routes, which was ridiculous to me. I was like, why are he supposed to start? And I thought Mosley and Witherspoon especially looked really good. They really wanted Verrett to look good, and they were doing everything they can to give him the job. And sure enough, they knew what they saw, but, stroke of luck on their end that he was actually the healthy one in the year where everyone was injured. Shocking. But I'd say that's what they're doing with Lance in terms of they know how to set him up and get him through the steps, which is what they're doing now. They started him today in training camp, got some runs with the first team. So that's why it's all on Lance. I don't think it's all on Jimmy. If he could keep playing well, sure is that he's nice. His feet are nice and wet or nice. He's like waist high, chest high in terms of the playbook. Doesn't have too many technique problems, knows where to go with the ball. Then he's not done. I think he might be a backup, but that's why you want to trade him. And that's where they'll set him up perfectly. If they can trade him, then we love Jimmy. We already knew. We told him this is the direction, and he's probably going to want to go somewhere where he can legitimately start versus just wait on Lance to get injured. Because I feel like if Lance is the starter, you can't go back to Jimmy even if he's playing poorly.
No.
You only go to him when you work through him. You don't pull a Tua Tagovailoa where you bench him, which I thought was stupid. It's like, all right, let him work through it. You don't stunt the growth. All right, you let him work through it, get him through these pressure situations, and you rail on him in weeks of practice to figure it out. So I think that's where you're at with Jimmy and the Trey situation in terms of if Jimmy's a starter, what you're projecting to be.
Yeah, and with the Trey situation, I think you hit that on the nail, really, is that I feel like it's really entirely dependent on what Trey Lance does. Jimmy Garoppolo, his involvement in this process, it's almost a placeholder at this point, right? In my opinion, at least. And with Jimmy Garoppolo, getting back to Jimmy Garoppolo's ceiling, though, for this season for the 49ers, because we can't predict, we can't make projections. We don't know what's going to happen. It seems like Jimmy could be the starter right now. So if he is, in my opinion, I agree with what you were saying. I think at maximum, they're an 11-win football team. They could get into the playoffs, maybe win a game. But beyond that, I don't really see Jimmy Garoppolo elevating this team. And you brought up some great points, which when I was preparing for this is a lot of the same stuff I was thinking, is that people have this idea that 2019 Jimmy and 2021 Jimmy are going to be the same player. But what they don't realize is Jimmy's He's had more injuries, of course, that's obvious, but the team around Jimmy is not better than they were in 2019. I think you could argue maybe the running back room is better, maybe the offensive line is slightly better, but beyond that, the rest of this team is at the same level or worse. I think the weapons are similar to what they were in 2019. Listen, Brandon Ayuk could take a huge step, but even between the 49ers' three main weapons, all those guys have injury risks. So you don't know if you're going to be getting them for the full season. Then if you look at that defense, you brought up some great points. They're not going to have DeForest Buckner, of course, from 2019. We don't know. We don't even know what's going on with Dee Ford right now. It's a guess at this point. So I think overall, and I'm going to get into this more into some of our other topics, I'm worried. I think this defense is not going to be as good as people are anticipating it to be. I think you brought up that Robert Saleh point. It's not that it's a knock on D'Amico Ryans, like you were explaining. It's just that Robert Saleh was such an elite defensive coordinator by those last few years with San Francisco that to expect a coordinator who's never called plays before, who's never been a defensive coordinator before, to come in and replicate that, to me, is very wishful thinking. So I think overall their ceiling is not as high as everybody is putting out there. Look, could they win 12, 13 games with Jimmy? Yeah, but that would, in my opinion, everything would have to go right for them, and a lot of things would have to go wrong for other teams. I think it's 49ers fans are very wishful in their thinking right now, and I agree with you, Jose, in that they're in that 9, 10, 11 win range. That's kind of the sweet spot, I feel like, for the 49ers this season with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, and that, exactly. I think about this. Even if you don't think the offense changed much from the last few years, with the defense, Ryans, I'm expecting an extra score getting put on the board, whether it's 3 points, 6 points, at least 3 points for sure. I would go round it up, even if it's 2.8. You know how the point per games go with the little averages. Is Jimmy gonna be that extra possession good? That's a little thing. And now you're gonna ask for extra possessions. Sure, the run game's gonna be there to try to limit it, but not only was the running game top notch already in 2019, limiting possessions, and the defense getting you those. Now it's like, I know the talent's there for the defense, so that's why they're not going to be bad. I still think they'll be teetering around above average. But yeah, I think D'Amico Ryan's going to have growing. How I see D'Amico Ryan's going to look, he's going to look good the first few games, because they're against average to low average opponents. And then once this starts hitting the fan for that stretch, I believe, where it's like weeks after the bye, week 6 through 10, that's where he's going to get exposed, because now teams are going to have film on him and how he likes to, maybe they're going to try to find patterns when he blitzes, what he likes to call, and that's when he's going to get picked on. I think he's going to get really picked on in the Rams game. McVay's going to run a super offense and nuclear on him. I think he's just going to be like, hey, I know Saleh ain't here, but yours unnecessary, so I got to destroy you, because Robert Saleh has been punking me. He's been making me the little brother. He's been making me his mini-me, so now I got to take it out on you. So I expect that the middle of the season where he looks really bad, which is why I think he's going to have growing pains. It's going to be natural. No one, if he looks perfect, if any corners look perfectly immediately in the first year, those are outliers more so. So let's just consider there's going to be growing pains as such, which is why, I wanted to bring that topic to us the other week. It's like, can some of the talent get through those growing pains and do their own thing? And how much can they really do if he's saying call man coverage and it's so bad, and all of a sudden they're finding holes, finding mismatches, how's the talent really going to, beat that? That's why I think it's really stuck on the pass rush, which, like you said, Dee Ford. But there's going to be a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo that he needs to demand. They need to demand more of him. Plus, he's paid that way where they have to demand more of him. Which can they get that around them? I don't think they can.
Yeah, well, and you were just talking about the defense specifically. That kind of does lead us perfectly segueing into the next topic, which you were just talking about this, and maybe you'll have the same answer. But
yeah, pretty much.
What is that biggest concern you have for the defense right now?
I think it's. You can go any standpoint, really. I see there's 3 levels. Maybe to change it up, I'm a little bit concerned with the corners, to be honest. I think that's one of my areas. You can go 3 areas. I know I said D'Amico Ryan's growing pains, which you can easily say right there. But I feel like if he was concerned, I'd say I think it's gonna get bad. I don't think it's gonna get bad. I think it's gonna be bad moments. I think if it's gonna get bad, it's where oh God, now Kyle needs to really put on his A game, and now he really needs his quarterback to be on the same page. I think the cornerbacks is not because of performance issues, because Verrett has proven he's elite, but I think his last year was definitely an outlier season. In a season where, like I said earlier, where in a year where all the 49ers players are dropping like flies, he was the one standing. That's how you know it was a goddamn outlier right there. Like, of all players that he was injured one, you would have said he was top of the list. But he looked great. And Emmanuel Mosley had some issues last year. Has a little scuff. He's had a little nicks and scratches the last 2 years since he's been in the league. But he's proven to be solid. I feel like he can do more. I feel like he's really not really talented, but I feel like he can do more. I feel like he is an adequate cornerback too. But still, the jury's out on Verrett's ability to sustain health. He said at a press conference, their OTAs, he told us, like, don't ask me any more injury questions. That's in the past. It's like, no, it's not, buddy. It's not in the past. Yeah. You literally were injured last year. You started the first 2 games injured with a hamstring or whatnot. So it's not over. I hope people don't forget about that. People still got to be, like, very skittish with him. And Emmanuel Mosley is still, like, even though as much as, like, I like hope in him, you know, let's see how he can do. And then you can even say slot corner, K1, as much elite he's been looking, is he still going to be elite after all those injuries? You know, he hasn't really been on the field too much. And then behind them, you know, Ambry Thomas, you know, Diamador Lenore, what are they going to do? How are they going to look?
Can you really expect from rookie
them? Especially rookie corners generally do not look good for the most part, except for Jalen Ramsey and, like, you know, Marcus Peters. Once again, all these players are outliers. That's why when Sanel was going off, like, these guys are going to look great. I'm like, they're going to look great. Are you sure about that? I mean, the only way they're going to look great, even if they do look great, it's probably because of a proponent of the pass rush, which that's another thing you could put a knock on a concern of the edge rush. So that's my concern, the cornerbacks. Because what if we're at third game of the season, he's going down, he has to miss a couple of weeks, Ambry Thomas step in. They're going to pick on him all day. They're going to try to see if he's ready. Sure, maybe he'll look good with some instances, but maybe he'll stop 2 10-yard passes and gives up the bomb. Who knows? Who knows how it's going to look with him? And you just can't be sure how ready he's going to be, because it's not like really that 49ers secondary is really known for churning out big top-notch talent, you know?
No, and I agree with you on the corner thing. It's not the thing I chose for this topic, but corner's been something I've been hugely worried about this offseason, because 49ers just are, I don't want to say they're neglecting the position, but they don't seem very proactive about finding solutions at corner. And I just don't like that attitude from this team, where they're waiting for things to happen at corner rather than making things happen at corner. And you mentioned something right at the end there, which kind of perfectly leads me into my next thing I wanted to talk about, Jose. I feel like you're reading my mind a little bit, because my biggest concern is about the edge pressure. Specifically, if you look at the 49ers last season, they were able to produce interior edge or interior pressure on the defensive line, but specifically, and I was looking at this earlier today from PFF, the 49ers' 3 leaders in pressures last season were Kerry Hyder, Eric Armstead, Javon Kinlaw. And then after that, it's Fred Warner and DJ Jones. That's not a lot of edge pressure you're getting from the 49ers. And specifically, with Nick Bosa coming off an injury for the 49ers, just to expect him to fill that role, and hey, you know, no worries, we'll be fine with him. I don't like that attitude from this team, again, where it seems like they're being more reactive than proactive with these kinds of decisions, where they did sign Samson Ebukam in the offseason, right? I think he is going to make a difference, but you look at what the 49ers did in 2019. If you want to go to defensive lines and if you want to go back and look at what they did then, they're not going to be the same as they were. It's not even going to be close, I think, quite frankly. And specifically with Eric Armstead, it's going to hurt him so much more, because they're not going to have that elite D Ford type of edge rusher to just come in and take the pressure off those interior guys. So I think overall it's an issue with this team, where I think D'Amico Ryans is going to do different things to create pressure. That's kind of what I'm anticipating. I see them doing some alternative stuff, some different blitzes that we haven't seen in the last few years from this team, some more creative stuff. But then you still got to be able to pin your ears back at some point and rush with 4 pass rushers like the 49ers did in 2019. And I really worry about this team's ability to create pressure on the edge. It's a huge concern for me. And the more I looked into it, like I thought from a personnel standpoint, it was going to be an issue. But the more I dove into the stats, Jose, it's, to me, one of the biggest glaring issues from this team right now.
Yeah, and I think for sure it probably is, and I would even concede that it is the biggest area of concern on the defense, edge rusher, because edge rush can make D'Amico Ryan's growing pains look better and make any woes at cornerback look better. Because it's been proven that you just need decent, solid corners. You don't need all stars. Heck, you can probably get away with just more than with a bunch of average guys and just one really good dude. So long as your defensive line and even your linebackers are there to really push the notice and really put the stamp on a game. That's where I think where you really are hitting the nail on, because the edge rush, it's not really the strength anymore. I think it is more interior, which how much are you really going to get there? If it's not there, then it's going to make all the plays really become exposed. Cornerbacks are really going to have to carry more of a burden, which we saw last year. You know, how Saleh literally changed the identity to a coverage lockdown team, to a pass rushing team, which I think Saleh doesn't get enough credit for. The 49ers defense last year, in terms of, they actually blitzed a lot more than people think. Yeah. Saleh went from, and I wrote about it too. I even wrote about it. It was like mid-season where he started changing. He was already almost the same blitzes he was a little more than mid-season way, maybe like week 10 for 10, 11 games of the season. He was already about the same amount, or already more than amount than he called in 2019. So the guy was he was really creative with his blitzes in terms of disguising it, whether it was delay, whether it was stunts, whether it was zone blitzes. He had a lot of creative ones. It was really wild. And a lot of that really got shown when he had K'Wan Williams out there, who was a phenomenal blitzer.
Right.
And that's, I think, something that's going to be interesting to see is D'Amico Ryan's going to steal some of that and add some of his own in, you know, which we really want to see if that's going to be consistent, because a lot of those blitzes were successful because they didn't see him coming. You know, right. Quarterbacks weren't able to key in on them. Like, you know, when you see Peyton Manning always deciphering, like, I already know that blitz is coming, baby boy. You ain't playing me. He was calling that from the jump. I think that's the big thing there in terms of that. So if the edge rush is not there, then you're probably going to call blitz more Izzy, because, you know, if edge rush isn't there, once again, then it goes, all right, how's D'Amico Ryan's faring? Is he calling too much blitz? Is he not calling enough blitz to make up for it? Is he leaving his corners way too exposed, so them getting beat? Is it there? And then you go on, is the corner's fault? Why are they getting beat? Then it's really going to look bad. So I think for sure the first step, surprisingly, it's not the coach. It's definitely the edge rush. But maybe that can get made up for in the interior pass rush, because I have a lot of hope for them. And I love Maurice Hurst there. I think he's a starting caliber player. I think if they actually give him the light of day, he could probably be a Pro Bowl player, to be honest, behind Kinlaw and Armstead in that interior. I really love that guy. And then you got Givens.
I was just going to say Kevin Givens and Zach Kerr. I feel like this interior defensive line is loaded for the 49ers, but it's almost a little too crowded, right? It's almost like they have too many guys and not enough spots for that interior defensive line. So I just wish they would have put more resources towards adding depth on that edge, adding maybe a Justin Houston or someone like that, where that would be a really valuable guy for the 49ers right now. Jose, though, I do want to move on to the next thing. I want to keep things rolling. On the offensive side of the ball, what's kind of the biggest question you have going into this camp for the 49ers?
Let's see. Offensive, biggest question. How about the right side of the offensive line, how that's going to shake up? I thought it was interesting that and maybe my memory is getting bad now, because when Grant said, how about Michael Glinchey training camp, I was like, are you stupid? What? Huh? And that's just me just being, because I like to mess with him. But I started thinking about it. I was like, when he started talking, after a minute of him talking, I was like, damn, you know what? I did actually overlook, because 2 practices, Grant had me focusing on the line play. And I remember there were some instances where McGlinchey was getting beat by backup players. And I didn't think too much of it, because it probably happened like 4 times, 4 too many, to be honest. But now I'm like, you know what? The writing was on the wall from the get-go, and he did look slimmer. It was there. So I think for him to have a good training camp and just make sure you battle with the starters and you punk the backups, that's key. Number one, to his confidence, at least. So that way he goes in and he feels good about himself. Because I think if anything he proved last year was he's mentally weak. Maybe that was just last year with the losing and whatnot, especially losing Joe Staley. But
he has a confidence issue.
For sure. Akilla Witherspoon did too, which he admitted. Maybe he said like, "Oh, I kind of battled through the bullying." Where Dante Pettis said, I couldn't battle through the bullying." So that's for sure, because Kyle Shanahan's maybe not get in your face, but he will punk you. He has like an old school coaching mentality in that sense. And then you got the right guard situation with Aaron Banks and Daniel Brunskill. Who's going to be the starter? Is it an open competition? I don't think anyone ever asked that, which honestly, I was hoping someone asked that straight from the get-go. I would have asked that today because that's my biggest question. You know, we talked about it last Friday where I think Jack said, oh yeah, Brunskill's a starter. It's like, is he the starter? Because you draft a pretty prominent right guard at high third round. That's definitely saying like he's probably going to start or at least battle for it.
Oh yeah, he was one of the highest guards taken.
Exactly. And that was like a very thin guard draft, but still he was one of the more higher ones for sure, like you said. He definitely could fit in and make an impact, I think. Not a major one, but he'll definitely help. And then at that point, you have Brunskill being your swing tackle who will either fill in when someone's injured or when you go on heavy sets when you're within the 5-yard line or even whatever, within 5 yards if you want to run it, because that's a sweet move right there because now you don't have to add on that extra tight end. Well, Dwelley is a decent blocker, so now you can add Brunskill as an eligible tight end, and maybe even Dwelley there, because that's what they did in 2019. People forget with Levine Toilolo, where they would throw him out there on another alignment or stuff like that, and that's how they got so many rips off to the ends. But I think those are definitely the two I'm looking for. That biggest question, and you're not really gonna see much improvement deals. You're not gonna see much evidence of this guy needs to start, like at least not concrete, but there'll definitely be more telltale signs like the one I neglected in that sense, because that one was clear as day that, man, like it kind of, there was some signs because they do let the offensive line, at least in pass pro, they'll let them battle. They'll let them headbutt each other and stuff like that. You hear like the collides, they're really hefty. And you can definitely tell at least like, all right, how do they stand where it's like, I'm like, the guy's coming for you, trying to get your quarterback. How do you, at least from that standpoint, because you're not really going to sense too much from a run blocking, which who cares about that? Because that can be easily fixed. You get your bread and butter money. You get all your money stacked in pass pro. So I think that's where I'm very curious how the right side of the line shakes up.
Yeah, you brought up some excellent points, and it's really the same sort of feeling I had about this topic, which my biggest question on offense is the cohesiveness of this offensive line. It's kind of been one of the revolving doors for the 49ers in the last few years, really. Even when, like we were talking about 2019, their offensive line really wasn't that healthy. Joe Staley was out. They had all kinds of issues. And then last year, center was a rotating position. Mike McGlinchey looked awful. There were all kinds of issues along this offensive line. So I think in general, for me, you look at the 49ers, people talk about the Kittle injury impacting the run game so much. And that probably made a huge impact on why they were middle of the pack in running versus higher up where we expect them to be, right? But part of that to me too is that offensive line not having any cohesiveness at all. Really, the 49ers haven't had a unit at offensive line pretty much the entire time with Kyle Shanahan. I feel like there's been so many injuries, so many issues that they really need to figure it out. And I feel like that's one of the things that could hold this team back potentially on offense, if anything were to hold them back.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm first of all, I'm glad none of us picked wide receiver 3 because I think that's very overblown. Of all the positions that a good offensive coordinator can fabricate out of, it's the wide receiver position.
And we know Kyle Shanahan loves his wide receivers.
Yeah, so you can platoon that. You don't really, and then you especially people forget you already have a trio of wide receivers. They had a quadra wide receivers last year with Debo, Ayuk, KB, and Kittle. If I already said it, but you know what I mean. And then he incorporates the running backs, Kyle Juszczyk, and them. So I don't think at that point just that's why if Sanu fits in that wide receiver rule, it's wide receiver 3 role. It's perfect, and then you let Hurd roll along slowly. So I think it's definitely just stemming with the offensive line, and you can even throw Alex Matt there. Not saying I'm questioning him for camp, but just having him there, even if the protection is the same, which I think it'll be slightly better, a little bit better. I'm not saying a drastic change in protection. At least performance-wise, but I just think this the IQ sense of knowing what to call, knowing what to do, getting over the line, having that veteran sense is huge. Because even it showed in 2019 with Richburg, once he went out, that interior was not the same. And why did they lose the Super Bowl? Because the interior pass rush was atrocious, and plenty of instances of other games they lost. Grady Jarrett against the Falcons in week 15 was atrocious. So center play is probably a top 3, top 5. No, I'd say top 3 critical position in a Kyle Shanahan led team. Quarterback, center. Yeah, quarterback, center. Honestly, top 2 most important on a team for him, and pass rush. Those are the top 3 for sure.
Yeah, no, you made some great points there. We're gonna go to the last topic now, Jose. I really do appreciate your time, man. Let me know if you got to get out of here at any point.
Nah,
But I do want to cover this last topic. This is what I've been writing about this for the past few days, and I've specifically been writing about who's gonna lead the team in targets, top 5, because I think we know who those obvious 3 are, and then there is a question of who those next 2 are, but I'm curious for you, who do you think is going to be the 49ers leader in targets by the end of the season?
that's hard to tell because I think it depends on who the quarterback is, to be honest. But first of all, you want to say it needs to be George Kittle. You pay him all that money. It's time to unleash this guy and let him get those Travis Kelce, Darren Waller type of receiver moments, which he has, but let him do it like on a bigger scale. But I think it's probably going to stem down to Brandon Ayuk, and I think that's the safest pick you can go with because he doesn't have injury concerns, and he's a better receiver than Deebo Samuel, which was a funny topic on the other day about is he a glorified running back or not, which Deebo Samuel is an offensive weapon. He does everything. He's a phenomenal weapon that almost any offensive coordinator would love, but I digress.
God, yeah. I mean, well, just look at DJ Moore in Carolina. He does a lot of what Deebo Samuel does, and people don't call him a glorified running back.
I think Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp do things like that too, split the way McVay does. So the fact you can do that just makes the offense more balanced and more unpredictable, which I love it, to be honest. So even if it is a quarterback limitation or a Deebo limitation, the fact that was discovered more in 2020 means like, wow, I might have fallen into something that was a limitation, but now I found a new dynamic to go in my offense. So thanks, limitation, Jimmy. So anyways, yeah, Ayuk because he's safer because is Kittle going to get injured again? Is Deebo going to get injured again? I think Ayuk's probably going to get more looks as a receiver in that sense for targets. I think that's pretty much cut and dry in terms of it's going to be him in that sense for that very reason, the health factor.
Right, and that's kind of the main thing with this issue is you would hope for them all to be healthy for 17 games, but I just don't think we can expect that at this point with the weapons that the 49ers have. And I agree with you. I think Ayuk is the guy who will finish the season with the most targets. And specifically, if they do make that change at quarterback, Trey Lance and Brandon Ayuk is going to be a scary duo. And specifically, I was looking at some advanced stats for Brandon Ayuk, I believe last night or the other night, and he really had like only 5 deep catches last season, like 5 deep receptions and like 12 targets total beyond 20 yards. So that just doesn't make sense for Brandon Ayuk's skill set. He is someone who could potentially dominate down the field, down the sideline, and be aggressive. So I want to see the 49ers take full advantage of the Brandon Ayuk experience. Now, like you were saying, the quarterback, that determines a lot of this, right? But I think even in general with Ayuk, we saw those reception perception charts, right? Charting which routes he's most successful with. Ayuk is successful at almost every level of the field. It's really more what can't he do rather than, what can he do? I love Brandon Ayuk. He's a special player in my opinion. I think he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver at some point. Mm-hmm. And then I just want to throw this last stat out there. He averaged 12.5 yards per touch last season. And he didn't even get that many kick returns.
He's a walking first down.
He's a walking first down. They just need to figure out how to get the ball in his hands more. I know Grant brings up the kick returns, the punt returns all the time, which I agree with him on that point. But just in general, within the normal flow of the offense, I think if the 49ers can really take full advantage of Brandon Ayuk, I feel like it's going to make the rest of the offense so much easier for everybody else. Right, Jose?
No, 1,000% they have to. And how about Ayuk? I think another reason you could say Ayuk is safer in that sense targets, because if he was able to still look good with the revolving door at quarterback, he can look good with Lance or anyone or Garoppolo. So that's another one there. But yeah, get him some punt return looks. Maybe not every punt return. For me, I'm willing to concede like, okay, you don't want to expose him 24/7, but how about when the game you need a spark, put him out there, or the game is tied, 4th quarter, we need field position, go out there nearing the end of the half. Like 3 to 4 returns, like at least a couple, a few, or a little bit, just when you need a spark on offense, when you definitely need favorable field position because you need to get a score or it's tied or it's, especially that spark point. Because, at some point, a punt return is all you need. You see that, oh, great, we have field position. I can call this, I can call that. maybe the players see that, oh, God, Ayuk, and Ayuk's already in the offense, and he gets in there. He starts getting on everyone's noodle about, like, we need to get this ball moving. So
Yeah.
I think, yes, get the ball in your best player's hands. It's crazy how that works. I mean, the Chiefs do it all the time. But Tyreek Hill was even returning all that and everything from, I don't know if he's doing punt return. I know he's doing kick return. But, I mean, I remember when early in my writing journeys in 2015, 2016, when I was writing about the Raiders first, Amari Cooper, this debate was the same thing. Should they throw Amari Cooper out there? And they did actually his rookie year, but he was actually getting drilled a lot. The guy didn't know how to take a hit, like, or lower his shoulder, or like to avoid hits. And he's not as more, well, I guess him and Ayuk kind of same skinny stature in terms of build. But I
was just gonna say, when Ayuk operates in space, that's where you see him be really.
Yeah, he's a lot more aware. He has a lot more smarts in that sense. Where like I remember seeing with Amari Cooper his rookie year, or even in 2016 when they gave him some looks, he was really good. He's really good at the feint left or feint right, and then cut and then make a guy miss and get a nice little chunk. But they stopped that. They only stopped it after he was taking way too many shots. So I can understand, like, okay, I've seen this enough. Yeah. We need to keep him out there. So I think until Ayuk proves otherwise, like maybe fumbles or this guy doesn't know how to avoid hits, then maybe don't put him in that case. But it's not like he's proven that he can't do that because he's done great in spaces anyways.
Yeah, and in fact, in college, the only reason he's an NFL wide receiver right now is because he started returning kicks.
That's awkward.
So I was just gonna
dude, for some reason I thought someone busted through my door for a second.
Man, I was getting worried. I'm like, Jose, is someone breaking in on you? Oh my god.
No, because I don't live alone here, so I gotta throw a little sign for people who don't pay attention. Like, hey guys, I'm doing stuff here.
I'm doing something here.
And then I got a neighbor who's like a DJ in his backyard. He'll play loud music, and sometimes, like, luckily he's not playing nothing right now. Like, no, I swear to God, like, I remember one time, like, a stream like months ago or so, I had to tell Grant I can't do it, dude. My neighbor won't turn off his music. I can't. Yeah, but it's fun when that happens.
Well, and I wanted to go back to this this last point on Ayuk really quick. I just wanted to say this: there's 17 games next season, right? Give him like 1-2 punt returns a game. I mean, I especially with the way you mentioned Amari Cooper before, but in the last 5 years, the NFL has completely changed the rules for returning on special teams, and they made it safer and safer for players. So, if anything, it should be even more reason to get Brandon Ayuk the ball, right? So, in general, to tie this up, he's gonna lead this team in targets, I believe. But in general, I see him as a great receiver who's also a very good offensive weapon and someone who they just need to take full advantage of. And I feel like he was a little bit held back last season just because of the circumstances and everything that was going on. But I guess, Jose, right before we get out of here, is there anything you want to plug for anybody? I know we got the All 49ers content. Everybody can go check that out on Sports Illustrated. I'm sure we'll have a lot this week. Is there anything you got upcoming today? Anything people should be looking forward to right now?
No, just as long as you're following me and All 49ers, you'll always see it. And you always see Ben's coverage, of course. Always keep tuning into his channel. He does a great podcast, a great stream here. And always check us on our roundtable where we like to roast Ben about looking like Superman, which actually I forgot to mention at the intro. I'm like, hey, is this a timeline of your growth here in terms of looks and the app in the back room and the background stuff like that? Because I like that. It's nice. It's almost like a little resume. Like, hey, I've improved. Look at my looks. Look at my background. I know what I'm doing here.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm trying to make it professional for everybody. Don't worry. I'm adding little aspects here and there. By the time we get to the the NFL season, I'll be a full on YouTuber at that point. So trust me, everybody. Real quick, though, for everybody, all of Jose's stuff is linked in the description below. You can go check out his Twitter if you haven't already. I'm sure we're going to see a lot coming from you in the next few weeks, especially with training camp happening. Jose, I really appreciate you coming on today. It's just so much fun, man. For everybody watching my streams, this is going to be the last stream on my channel for this week. I'll be back Monday next week. I'm going on vacation this weekend, but
yeah.
I'll be on Jack Hammer's channel later tonight. I might hop in a roundtable this week. We'll see what happens. I'll keep everyone updated. So just go check me out on Twitter. Subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks, Jose. I appreciate the time. I hope everybody enjoyed this today.
Right on, Ben. Right, everyone, for checking in.